Okay, welcome to the Pharmacy Residency Podcast. Remember the Pharmacy Podcast Network. A little under the weather, so I have this kind of Brian Adams-ish voice today. But what I wanted to go over was residency business cards, and there's actually quite a bit of, not controversy, but certainly not clarity about what should be on it, if you should have one, and things like that. So you can go to my Tony PharmD1 Facebook page if you want. But this, and you can see the thread in the comments and so forth. But this came because one of the people I'm helping with their letter of intent, and again, if you want help with your letter of intent through the residency season, just contact me. It's $75 for the whole residency season. But they asked, what should I have on my business card? Is PharmD candidate 2020 okay? What should I put? And so I'm going to go through some of the comments and what my thoughts are on them. So let's start with the picture. Should you have a picture on your card? The reality is people are not going to remember you as one of the hundreds of people that they saw. And so what you want to do is maybe have the picture there. But the reality is that even if you have the picture, they're still not going to remember who you are. And so it sounds like the consensus, or a couple of people have said, the picture is really something that most people don't put on there. But I'll get to what they do put on there, QR codes and things like that. Second thing, I think that someone else put that, you skip the cards altogether. And someone said that as a PGY1, PGY2, we never looked at them as after we got them from a P4. And what I've heard after the residency showcase, and remember, it's the residency showcase, not the residency applicant showcase, is that they simply recycle your cards and your CVs and throw them away. And they just wanted to be polite and accept them, but they don't use them because there is a process. Everything is electronic. And unless there's something very specific they want to remember, they might write on the back of it and keep it. But otherwise, my understanding is that most people get rid of all the CVs and stuff like that. And you say, well, what did I spend all this time on it for? And we'll talk about that with the business cards, but with the CV, the time and place is with forecasts when you do the actual application. I've seen that we prefer more conservative business cards, so no picture, and the QR code with the CV for quick reference. So instead of saying, here's a piece of paper, and a CV, you're giving a business card with a QR code. So if they do want to look at your CV, they can go find it. And that's kind of a more technologically up-to-date way to do it. Let's see. So a lot of people say they meet through PPS rather than the residency showcase. So again, that's a lot of times I think for PGY2 and I think for fellowships and jobs in PPS, the personal placement service, which is outside the residency showcase. So for those of you that don't know, the residency showcase is 3 groupings of time of 3 hours, I think, like one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and then one the next day in the morning or afternoon. And each residency site likely goes into one of those 3. And there are just so many residencies that they needed to break it up in 3. But also you need a break. It's exhausting going in there, and there are thousands of people in there. And I mean that, thousands and thousands of people. Let's see. Some people keep saying they never handed out their cards, so they had them made. Other people really, really didn't like PharmD candidate. And down at the end, someone actually makes a case for the word candidate is someone that's in their final, not their final year, but it said something to the extent of final requirements for some kind of degree, like a PhD or something like that. So properly, a P4 or a final year pharmacist would be a PharmD candidate. So I think the accepted way, or what they're kind of coming to as a conclusion, is PharmD class of 2020. And then obviously if you graduate, you change it to pharmacist if you are applying again, so that 4 or 5% of you that apply again. It seems like the PharmDC was not a popular way, so PharmD little c for PharmD candidate, that seems to be one that's not very popular at all. Todd Urey made an appearance from the Pharmacy Podcast Network. He's the owner or host, and he is really done a great job of allowing students, and we've had probably almost 300 students or more on there, and you can put that on LinkedIn, your interview with us. I interview every APPE student, so they have that on there. And what it is it's something you could QR code to and just basically say, hey, if you wanted to hear more about me, I did an interview, and you can listen to that. And it's just kind of a very cool thing to do. Moo.com, I keep hearing, is the place to get cards. Some people spend a lot more for their cards, almost $1 a card, which is a ton of money for a business card. And then others, maybe printed 100 and only used one. There are a couple examples on there of someone's business card. Someone actually had a great logo. It was really cool. They were a pharmacist. Let's see. So another person that's in the residency now mentioned that business cards, they put them in stacks. So you can kind of tell, like, oh, wow, this really cool person went up and went in this stack. But then you see this person that was kind of just, I don't know, causing maybe some trouble with just asking question after question that they easily could have gotten off the website. And you see it go into a different pile. So when you hand them yours, you can kind of creep on and just go like, all right, well, which stack does it go in? Does it go in the good stack or the bad stack? But I thought that was kind of a quick way to do it. And under the duress of Residency Showcase, that makes sense. Someone said it's an RPD. They keep the cards instead of the CVs because they're easier to travel with, and that makes sense. So it sounds like putting your QR code to your LinkedIn or your curriculum vitae on your card is the way to do it. Let's see. There's a picture of somebody who put in their card. So again, Tony Farm D1 on Facebook. Let's see. And everyone who put that they were a Farm D candidate was the expectation that you were a P4. So yeah, I guess you technically are a Farm D candidate as a P3 because you're finishing the requirements. You're over the halfway point. But I think the idea is that it's professional and it looks good. Brandon Dyson, of course, brings up, I think it was American Psycho, where he had this great quote where, it was about having a watermark on it and just how crazy you can get with these things. I really liked Anna Shields because it was vertical instead of horizontal. And her name she has 4 letters in her first name and then only 7 in her last. So she could make it vertical and put her name in really big font and then the information in the rest. And it was just really impressive to put it as a vertical one instead of a horizontal one. And then just a little more debate about candidate. So just to give you some takeaways, you should have a card. Your card should connect to your CV through a QR code or something like that. You should put on at least, what class you're in Farm D candidate if you are a P4. Don't use Farm D little c. That I thought it was a typo when I first saw it, so that doesn't seem like a good one. And really, it's just about professionalism in a way to kind of introduce yourself and think of the awkwardness of CV versus a card. Here's a business card. Okay, that's like a hello, that's a coffee. Here's a 7-page CV. Well, what am I going to do with that? I'm trying to answer these people's question. There's 6 people in line. It's just a big piece of paper. So again, I think the business card over the CV as you bring it. You could have CVs in your briefcase or whatever you're bringing to Residency Showcase if they really need it, but it sounds like a business card is really the best way to go. As always, if you got questions, hit me up on Tony Farm D1 on LinkedIn or Facebook. But I think this was some good advice in terms of what to put on there, and you can look on my Facebook to see exactly what those cards look like. Hey, thanks for listening to the Pharmacy Residency Podcast. And if you're interested in learning more about the interview process, go over to Amazon.com where you can check out 100 strong residency interview questions, answers, and rationales in print book, ebook, and audiobook.